All right, class. Welcome back. I understand that you guys miss my face. You want to see more of me. The videos were just text. You guys were like, nah, we don't care. We're not going to. No, thank you. So I'm back. Today's lesson is on marijuana. So, what is marijuana? It's a plant uh, that has chemicals in it that when you inhale them or digest them, they'll have an effect on your brain. So it's like any other drug. It's going to affect your brain. So the thing about marijuana is there's a lot of new information coming out. People are using it for medicinal purposes now. It's legal in certain states. So you might think, oh, hey, I'll just do it. It's okay. Everything's safe. Let's slow down a little bit. Medical marijuana has the chemical that is harmful taken out of it. Now, the chemical that can cause a lot of dilemmas, the one that gets you high is called THC. The THC chemical, when inhaled, it will alter your senses. It changes your mood. It impairs your body movement. You have difficulty thinking and problem solving, and you also have impaired memory and learning. What does that all mean? It means that if you are using marijuana recreationally, meaning that you're not prescribed it by a doctor, you're putting your mind at risk. So what is an altered state of mind? What does that mean? It means that you're no longer thinking rationally. You're no longer thinking in the same way that you normally would. Your inhibitions are lowered. So your brain functions differently. Your brain, your brain is not fully developed. Okay. So your brain is not fully developed until you're like 25. What does that mean? That means that your brain's still growing. The neurons are still forming new connections, and when you get to about the age of 25, your brain sort of has all the major pieces in play. It doesn't mean that once you're 26, your brain stops growing or making connections. It just means that the major components and your habits and all of the major building blocks for your brain are there. Just like when babies are born, they have a bunch of bones. They have like way more bones. They have like double the bones. But as they grow older, the bones join up, they develop, they make them stronger, and your body just changes and adapts to life. So your brain isn't fully developed until you're 25. What does that mean? That means that when you're taking in different substances, when you're taking in drugs, before your brain is fully formed, it leaves a thumbprint on your brain, so to speak. When you're as young as you are, your brain is sort of changed permanently. Habits are formed. Your ability to learn is altered. Okay. One of the things that marijuana has been linked to is schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a mental disorder that causes paranoia and hallucinations. So schizophrenia doesn't mean that you're becoming a different person or a different personality. There's a lot of anxiety that happens when you're schizophrenic. And often you'll need to go on to medications to prevent you from having that psychosis. So that's a little tangent on schizophrenia and the fact that marijuana can activate schizophrenia in your brain. Let's move along here. So some of you have heard about medical marijuana. What does it do? What's it for? What's the deal? What's medical marijuana? Medical marijuana is often prescribed to people who have glaucoma, who need relief from pain and muscle spasms, if you have severe nausea, if you're going through chemotherapy, And if you're suffering from anorexia, those are just a few things that medical marijuana can help with. So, what's the difference between medical marijuana and marijuana that's not medical? The difference often is that the THC, the mind-altering chemical, will be taken out of the medical marijuana so that you're not altered. Your state of mind isn't changed when you take the medical marijuana. It's literally just a medicine. Often will be taken in pill form rather than smoked. There's a lot of differences between a medicine in the form of marijuana and then the recreational drug. While marijuana is legal in a couple of states and medical marijuana is legal in even more states, the federal government still has regulations and still considers it an illegal drug. So what does that mean? That means you can still get in trouble for having it. Not only can you get in trouble for having marijuana, but you can get in trouble for having marijuana paraphernalia, something that you would use to smoke the marijuana. Mr. Velez, what kind of trouble would I get in if I had marijuana? It varies, right? Depending on where you are, it could be anywhere from a misdemeanor to a felony charge, and it depends also on how much you have. What is a misdemeanor? It's basically a record that is public of you breaking the law. So what does that mean? That means that if in the future you want to be employed somewhere and you're like, oh, this is a great job, I'm so excited to start my job. You're like, you've studied, you've done your work, you've like put in your research and you've done everything to get yourself set up for this new job. And then they say, okay, we're just going to do a quick background check. They'll go ahead and search in the government files. It's public. Anyone can look it up. And they'll see, oh, so-and-so has a misdemeanor for marijuana. And they'll contact you and they'll say, so we see here that on the public record you have a misdemeanor for having possession of marijuana. We cannot go forward with the employment. It means we can't hire you. Legally, our company isn't allowed to. And that's the kind of thing that can happen when you have a misdemeanor. Another way that marijuana affects your ability to be employed in certain places is that they'll do a drug test and see if you've been smoking marijuana. So even if you don't have a misdemeanor or you're not on record for having possession of marijuana, there's still going to be a drug test. And of course, we're all familiar with a felony. A felony has different implications. If you need to remember what those are, just go back to video with lesson number 1 and 2. Okay, make sure to go below in the links. Oh, look at there. There's a link to a Google form. Click it. Fill it out. It's short. There's 4-5 questions tops. Go back to the other videos that were boring and just had text on the screen. Do those too. They won't take long. Do them one at a time. Do them one at a day. It's for your education. You'll learn more. You'll be like, oh wow, I didn't know that opiates had those types of effects on you. Oh, I didn't know that that hallucinogens were this type of drug and did this and had these effects. Guys, my promise to you, no more videos that are boring, but please go back to those, just the 3 that were semi-boring. Try your best to tolerate the horribleness that is monotone Mr. Velez. And complete those assignments. I read your responses. They entertain me. I look forward to making more videos, to reading your responses. Okay.